Hi guys, I didn't know if I can't remember what I did for an intro for this video, so I'm filming it at the end here. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with ayahuasca and a message for the divine collective consciousness. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And also, thanks to my babies out there, my little homies that already have the imagination. I love you guys. You guys make me so happy. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey. And let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. And if you just clicked on this video or like happened upon it, think about, joining the nation. We'd love to have you, like it's all fam, it's all good. Let's get it. Let's work together. Let's share some energy. Let's be collective, right? Okay. So, I'm gonna talk a little bit about where I was and where I am now. I'm in recovery. I was a heroin and cocaine addict for 10 years. And I am finally in a point in my recovery where I don't feel like I'm going back. And that happened for me personally, after experiencing plant medicine, ayahuasca. And my experience with ayahuasca, I had honestly gone into it thinking like, okay, this is gonna be transcendent. I'm gonna have like an experience, me and the universe, we're gonna commune, and like it's gonna be so beautiful, and I'm gonna see all these beautiful things and experience this beautiful spirit, etc., etc., etc. So where I did it, we did 2 nights and two sessions where we drank the brew. The first night I had almost no response. I just puked and puked and puked. And I honestly, I went with a friend of mine. He had an experience that I did not have, and that was kind of like honestly a bummer for me. But I was laying there like, oh my gosh, this isn't gonna work. I just came up here, and like I've always had like this weird relationship with any sort of psychedelic, where like it doesn't affect me the same way it affects other people, or at least it doesn't seem to. Like I either need to take more, or like I don't get a normal effect from it, or whatever. Like one time I took a ton of mescaline. I used to party. But one time I took a ton of mescaline and I didn't feel it at all. I had like no response to it. Okay. So I was feeling really kind of like disappointed a little bit, and the Taita, the shaman that was, orchestrating or whatever the experience, had come up to me a few times and offered me, I think it was like most people were offered 3 that night, and I was offered 4. And on the 4th one, I puked it up right away. And then I pretty much went to bed at it was like 2 a.m. I went to bed after that. The next morning, there was like, I don't know, like maybe 20 or 30 people there, and a bunch of us were sitting out on the patio waiting for the day ceremony to start. And we were talking. And that was when I really started to feel connected, when I had an opportunity to talk to people. And if I'm honest, that's always when I feel the most connected. Reaching out to people has always felt like part of my personal calling. I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to travel. Those are 2 of my must-haves for like my dream job, my dream experience. I personally get charged up from talking to people in like deep ways about their lives. And we were talking about, the universe and like how our own experiences create our own worlds, etc., right? And I really connected with a few people there, and I finally started feeling comfortable, because before that I was like, I grew up being a really social person, and after my experience with addiction, that became really hard for me. I didn't know how to connect with people in the same way anymore, or feel safe around people in the same way anymore. I experienced homelessness. I experienced sexual trauma. I experienced just like in general unsafe situations. I was really reckless, and I experienced a lot of negative relationships. Wow, the dogs are barking today. um, but I had gone to this to help heal me from my addictive tendencies. And I had expected to have some sort of transcendent experience related to that. And they always say, like, you shouldn't go in to ayahuasca with the expectation of anything. And I was trying not to have an expectation, but, like, obviously I did. Because what happened was something I did not see coming at all. So at like 11 o'clock, the Taita gave everybody, he did his like opening ceremony. He gave everybody the brew, and I took my turn and I felt nothing. Just kind of like nauseous. And so we were outside. He had told us like it would be best to go outside and be in the sun. So we were outside and I was laying in the sun. I was getting hot. I was trying to hold down the brew. He said that he would offer two that day. And I came back to him about like 45 minutes later. I told him, like I'm not having, like any effects. And he gave me my second cup. Well, he actually like announces when second cup is available, and so I took it. Later, he came back to me, asked me if I was having experiences, still said no, gave me my third cup. Here's the thing, I wasn't, like, a lot of people experience going somewhere else, so to speak, right? Like, they have some sort of psychedelic vision or exiting of their body. I was very present, and I realized they say that Mother Aya doesn't give you what you want, she gives you what you need. And what I wanted was to be able to leave my body and experience something transcendent and like connecting me to the universe, but I've always felt connected to the universe. I don't need any convincing that I belong in this time doing what I'm doing. But I did need healing in the 3Ds, so I stayed in my body. I didn't have any sort of visuals, really. I mean, maybe a couple of times I had moments where the trees kind of seemed as though they were dancing a little bit. But for the most part, I didn't have visions. I was very much inside of myself. And the entire time I was crying. It was like 2 hours or 3 hours of me just straight up crying and weeping. And at this point, a lot of people had already like peaked and started to like mellow down from whatever their experience was. And that's really when mine started. I started just crying and crying and crying and crying. And I was just weeping. And it didn't feel like I was crying. It felt like my body was crying. Like I didn't feel connected to the tears. For about like, I don't know, 20-ish minutes, I just cried. Like the crying became weeping, and the weeping became sobbing, and the sobbing became like hyperventilating, like like real crying. And when that finally calmed down, I went to the Taita and I asked him, can I have one more cup? I feel like, can I have one more cup? And he smiled at me, and he dug to the bottom, which is, I can't remember, it's something earth, I can't remember what they call it, but he dug to the bottom and he gave me this big spoonful and told me to take it with the water, or I had juice. But so I did, and it was, the flavor, you guys, is like dirt mixed with tomato juice with like a little bit of spiciness. It's not good, and it's even worse coming up. And like now even the smell of tomato juice kind of like gets to me a little bit. But I did my best to hold it down, okay? Maybe like 15 minutes later, I was just focusing on holding it in and focusing on holding it in. And then kind of the feeling of needing to purge left me. And I started crying again and weeping again. And the Taita came to me. He gave me a white tea candle, and he told me to put every memory, positive and negative, that I could remember in the next 20 minutes into that candle. And that's what I did. I thought of some painful experiences with my dad. I thought of some happy moments with my family. I thought of things at school, times when I was using, things with old boyfriends, times when I was in treatment, times when I was in therapy, positive and negative, you know, like everything that I could possibly think of, I tried to feel and experience and put into it. And after the 20 minutes, the Taita came to me. He had a cigar and he had some sort of like oil, but it was like, it had like the texture and like the cold feel of like when alcohol, like rubbing alcohol gets spilled on you, but it smelled like flowers. So he had that, and then he had the candle, and he had like this little cup thing that had a hole on both ends. It was like a shot glass, but both ends were cut off. And he brought me out into the sun, and he sat me down in front of him. I was on the ground and he was in a chair, and I was facing away from him. He had me take my hair. I had it up in like little pigtail buns. He had to take my hair out. Actually, it was like braided. Doesn't matter. He had me take my hair down, and he asked me if I had any brain injuries or anything wrong with my brain. And I told him that I had some mental health issues that I've been diagnosed with, and that I had trauma. And he started putting the cup up to my head and really loudly. That's what he was doing. And one of my friends that I met there happened to be in the woods across from where we were sitting and saw us, and he had told me that he was removing spiritual darts. So he was removing negative energies, negative spirits that had attached themselves to me in my lifetime. And while he was doing this, my body started feeling like emptier and more full at the same time. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like the weight inside of me was lifting, but I felt fuller, and like within myself, in my soul. And he smoked the cigar, and he blew the cigar over me, the smoke from the cigar over me, and he was saying blessings. He speaks Spanish. He was saying blessings in Spanish over me. And at one point, he told me to think of everything that I didn't like about my life and list it in my head. Bring it forth into my mind. Bring it forth into my mind. And I was like rocking myself back and forth at this point, like self-soothing. And I was thinking of all of these really terrible things that I might talk about them later. I can tell stories if you guys want to hear about it. Some of the crazy stuff that happened when I was using and homeless and hustling. I used to do a bunch of crazy stuff, but we can talk about that if you want to hear about it. But I was thinking of, and not only that, but I was also thinking of my distress intolerance, my fear of success, my fear of myself, my lack of self-love, my lack of direction, things that, not just the painful memories that I had, but also the results of having those painful memories. As I was thinking of these things, he was, you know, he was putting the cup all over my head and neck. And then he put his hands on my chest, and he was, not in like a weird way, but like I felt as though something was being pulled out of me. And he poured the like tincture of flowers and whatever solvent alcohol thing it was. It was like an oil, but also like the texture and feel of rubbing alcohol. It was like not heavy like oil, it was light like rubbing alcohol. And then next he told me to think of all the things that I wanted to bring in for myself. And I thought of abundance. I thought of forgiveness, healing. I thought of a path in life that I wanted for myself. I thought of loving myself. I imagined what it would be like to be able to afford my life, to live on my own, to be independent, to care for myself. Because a lot of the last 10 years was other people caring for me. and forgiving other people. That's what this whole thing was about. I mean, when I was crying before we did this ceremony together, where we had this one-on-one interaction, me and the Taita, I had I was thinking about my dad and asking myself why he didn't love me the way that I wanted to be loved. And it's like I heard a voice that was my voice, but it was outside of myself almost. And it was like he loved you the way he knew how to love you. And he did the best that he could to take care of you. And the Taita came up to me right after I had that thought, and he said, you need to forgive. You need to learn to forgive. You need to release this pain. And that's, I've been doing therapy for like 3 years. I thought I had forgiven him for a lot of the things that happened in my life when we were younger. He was an alcoholic, and he worked a lot. So, and he had anger issues. I mean, he wasn't like physically abusive to me, but there was a lot of yelling and a lot of like negative enforcement kind of stuff. And he's different now. He's a different man now. And he cares more, and he's here for me, and he loves me, and he shows me that he loves me, and he worries about me. He cares about me. He's a better dad than he ever was when I was younger now. And it was like me, and it wasn't just that. Like, I had to forgive the person who assaulted me. I had to forgive boyfriends that I've had for the codependency in our relationships. I had so many things that I had to release. And that's why the whole first day was purging, because there was so many energies I was holding on to so tightly because I identified by them. I was consistently remembering these ideas and re-victimizing myself. So after he has me release all of these things and helps me to release all these things, he says, now I want you to think of the life you want for yourself. And like I said, I thought of all of the positive things I wanted to bring in for myself, and me being able to accept them. Not just that they would be available to me, but that I could accept them, and that I felt worthy enough to have them. Because worthiness is a big issue, or was a big issue for me. I didn't feel like I deserved good things because of all the bad things I had done. And at the bottom of all of these people I had to forgive myself. And that was the hardest thing. And that is still, I mean, I did a lot of work that day, but I didn't do it all. And I asked for my ability to forgive myself. I asked to be able to see myself as Source sees me, as the Most High sees me. And after a moment of letting me focus on those things, he started rocking me, put his hand behind me and in front of me and started rocking me. And I was still crying pretty seriously, pretty heavily. And then he told me, on the count of 3, you're going to take a deep breath, and you're going to scream the loudest scream you can muster. And I'm a loud ass bitch, y'all. I can be loud. I can be loud. Like, my voice carries like it's like I was born to talk, which I kind of low-key think that I was. Okay, but he's like, you're going to scream the loudest scream that you can muster. Not for pain, not for fear, not for anger, but for freedom. And he counted me down, and I screamed the loudest scream I've ever screamed in Screaming Town ever. I had multiple people afterwards come up to me and be like, "Are you okay? What was your experience? Are you okay? That seemed pretty heavy." And actually, this friend that I made, he came up and asked me about it, and then that's actually what kind of got us started to talking, and ended up exchanging numbers and being able to spend some time together outside of that, and we have a really good connection. So it's like one of the first really positive things that came out of that for me. And I felt so light and happy in the following weeks after. And within a month, I started my own tarot business. It's been almost 2 months now. I started my own tarot business. I'm working on launching a podcast with my friend. It's going to be Left Brain, Right Brain is going to be the name of it. And it changed my life, is my point. I stopped craving drugs altogether. I found it in myself to find value enough to believe that I could change my own life. I felt empowered. That's the long and short of it. I felt empowered. I started seeing myself as somebody who was talented and beautiful inwardly and outwardly and capable in ways I never thought I could be, literally up until that point. My dream in life and what I believe is my calling. So one of the things I had realized in the time after this, during the integration period of what I had learned, is that I have been through kidnapping, I have been through homelessness, I've been through drug addiction, I've almost died many, many times. But every terrible thing that has happened in my life was miraculously resolved through my own strength of will, through my own intelligence, and through the grace of the universe. And before I was ever a drug addict, I used to always say the universe will provide, and I believed it fully, and it was always true, even when I stopped saying it. But I reconnected to that idea that as long as I believe in myself and I'm being authentic to myself and I'm being authentic to truth and love and just like my divine calling, that the universe will provide for me opportunity and protection. And I always had that. So we are all a part of divinity, and divinity is perfect, right? Divinity understands all, experiences all, creates all, can see things from every angle, and knows why it's happening. Divinity doesn't have a need for pain and doesn't have a need for joy. It is perfect Zen, right? It is in nirvana. There is no difference between pain and joy for divinity because it has complete understanding of everything, right? Because you only feel joy because you know pain. That's why each of us is here. Each of us is here to experience these different types of joys and pains as an extension, a tiny little string coming from this mass divinity, this mass consciousness. Each tiny little string is having its own experience that can go back to source and collectively develop source into a greater creator than it already is, and it's already perfect. It's hard to understand and it's harder to say. But with every painful moment you have and every stride you take out of it and every joyful moment you have and every moment you take to absorb it, you are serving your purpose. You are serving your best, most divine path. And what I have come to realize is that the dream that I have always had since I was literally as long as I knew that I had to figure out something to do with my time here is I have wanted to help people, and I have wanted to travel the world, and I have wanted to be seen by many. And I never allowed myself to believe that I could do that. I could do all those things. That I could help many people, that I could help make the world a better place, that I could help change the world. Because a lot of people say, like, how can one person change the world? Right? And yeah, it's hard. One person by themselves can't just, like, go and do it by themselves. But one person can become part of the collective and work with the collective to do something great, and can add a piece that will help someone else to add another piece that will build and build and build to make that beautiful change that we all crave. We live in an ugly world right now, depending on how you look at it. Actually, not even. Objectively, we live in an ugly world right now. We live in a world where people are brutally murdered every day, where families are ripped apart, and where in your own home, like, there can be abuse. We live in a world where there are, in not just in America, but in many countries, there is a growing authoritarian influence telling us how to live. We live in a world of fear and doubt and a mechanized system that like does not leave room for humanity and love and compassion. And that's scary. And I don't expect to be able to fix every single problem, but I do know that I can help some people with my own messages, with my own experiences, with my own stories, with my own thoughts and ideas. And I also know that trying will make me a better person. So the truth of what's happening with the collective conscious right now is that we are all waking up to our own power. We've been oppressed for a long time, longer than any of our lives and longer than anybody you've ever known, their lives. Like, it's been a slow developing systematic oppression where sometimes the oppression is very obvious and sometimes it's more insidious. But we are waking up to our truest selves. We're waking up to who we want to be. And so many people don't want to live in this autopilot, automatic kind of way anymore. They want to follow their dreams. They just don't necessarily believe they can, or they believe that they can, but they don't know how. And so what I'm trying to do here is help you guys to feel empowered, that every negative thing that's happening in your life, every negative thing you're going through right now is building you into a better person. And don't wait. Don't wait until the time is right to pursue who you want to be. If you want to be a painter and you're like, oh, nobody will buy my paintings, paint anyway. You can still work a regular job and paint anyway. Or you can, if you have the means to not work a job and paint, do that. You can open an online shop. You can start going to events. You can start vending at places. If you want to be somebody that does a travel vlog, don't wait until you have enough money to go to Bali. Travel in your own area to beautiful places and show those places off. You can start now. Starting now is what will bring in that energy of success and joy and creativity and manifestation and alchemy that will change your life. You can do that right now. And if each of us does that, eventually we will reach this tipping point. It's like if enough of us are doing it, it will change the consciousness. There is a mass consciousness that we are all a part of, a collective consciousness that we are all a part of. And yes, sometimes it's hard. You can't be perfect all the time. But if enough of us are going within ourselves and finding our darkness and healing it, eventually the collective will follow. We don't need to band people together as urgently as we need to empower ourselves. So I guess I just want to let you guys know I'm going to be doing a few videos like this every once in a while just to kind of speak on, you know, like ways I'm empowering myself, ways that we can all empower ourselves, trying to just, I don't know, share my experience and see if it can help somebody. I'm still going to be doing tarot readings and I'm still going to be doing pick-a-cards, but I just want to do this too. So that's what I'm going to do, because it's my channel, girl. Okay. I love you so much. Thank you so much. If you liked what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. And, you know, like, join the family. Cool. I love you guys, and here we go.